Welcome in, everybody. Welcome to my palatial hotel room in Baltimore, Maryland, on the Inner Harbor. It's always good to be in Baltimore. Rockies coming off a fabulous win, 6-5 last night. We taping on a Saturday afternoon. Get to that victory in a moment. Get to the Ryan McMahon trade in a moment as well. But want to tell you, as always, about my sponsors, Steel and Huntington Bank. Steel, they have the best products out there to help improve your property, whether it's blowers, trimmers, chainsaws, mowers, big and small. You know where to go. Steel, STIHL. Go to steelusa.com. Go shopping, and you'll find a dealer right around the corner from you if you go to steeldealers.com. That's Steel, STIHL. Also, Huntington Bank, they're going to earn not only your trust, they're going to earn your business. If you go in and see them, there's now 37 branches in the state of Colorado. They're opening up branches near and far. And they do a terrific job of taking care of you, the customer. So go online to huntingtonbank.com, and I think you'll be very impressed. So big thanks, as always, to Huntington Bank and to Steel. All right, let's get rolling. As I said, it's Saturday afternoon. Steamy Baltimore, Maryland. Yesterday at 5 p.m., the heat index was 111 degrees. It reminded me of a time in Baltimore, I don't know, 7, 8, 10 years ago. Time flies. And it was the hottest day I ever remember during the summer. And yesterday kind of approached that in Baltimore. The Rockies made news earlier in the day with the trade of Ryan McMahon. And I think for many, this wasn't a surprise. He was rumored to be traded, and he was rumored to be potentially on the trade block a year ago. There was interest with the New York Yankees a year ago. I know that for a fact. And this year, a deal was consummated. And as I said, it shouldn't come as a huge surprise because the Rockies need to keep bringing in young talent, projectable talent, and not every prospect makes it. You understand that, especially in the game of baseball. But the Rockies trade Ryan McMahon, who's one of the most tenured, most popular Rockies last decade, to the Yankees. In return, they get two young pitchers, a left-hander by the name of Griffin Herring. Both are pitching, by the way, in the Yankees system at the high A level, and Josh Groves, a right-hander. Both are starters right now. Griffin Herring, interestingly, when he was at LSU and he was an All-American there, worked out of the bullpen. But he's added a pitch since coming to professional baseball. He throws a changeup in addition to a low to mid-90s fastball. He has a sweeper, which has been very impressive for him, was something he relied on quite a bit in college. And the scouting reports on him being a potential mid-rotation, big league pitcher down the road. There's two thumbs up on what he's done so far. And this year, he's pitched to an ERA in the low twos. So he has impressive numbers. Josh Groves, 15 starts, about a 476 on that same high A team. He's a guy that potentially could be a back-end starter, potentially could move to the bullpen. But again, they're young arms that are seen right now as big league arms down the road. So that's what the Rockies get back in return for Ryan McMahon. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't speak to Ryan and what I think of him personally, in addition to professionally. You will not find a better guy, whether he was a ball player or not, than Ryan McMahon. He's a wonderful guy, and I have great respect for him as a player because he brings it every single day. And I know in a game of streaky, he's really streaky. He had an 0 for 35 earlier this year, but he's got a toughness that he never brings any of his offensive streakiness to the field. He's been a Gold Glove caliber defender his entire career. I hope one day he wins a Gold Glove. He plays through a lot of injuries. It is really, really important to him to show up and post up every day. We've had conversations about that innumerable times. And so I have great admiration for him as a man. I have great admiration for him as a player. The Yankees will be helped defensively by him, and probably less pressure. There's a ton of pressure being a New York Yankee and playing New York, so that's a given. But a little less pressure because McMahon will not be asked to hit third or fourth or probably even fifth in the lineup with the Yankees. It's further down the line. the pressure to deliver the big hits, or begin with Aaron Judge, naturally Stanton. So I think it's a good landing spot. I think he'll handle the Big Apple, and again, he's going to help their infield defense immeasurably, certainly. But it's hard when you part with popular players, whether they're popular from a fan standpoint, which is most important, or popular from a teammate standpoint, which is also extremely important. It was a tough and emotional day for many involved with the Rockies, but a necessary one. This is a business. It's a business about winning. And the Rockies, as you know, have not won since 2018. And if you're not winning, you have to make changes. And sometimes those changes are tough, and certainly changing a very popular player, not only with the fans, but inside that clubhouse, inside the entire organization, has to be done. And, that's what good organizations end up doing. They make tough decisions. Now, not everyone works out. We'll see what kind of fruit it bears down the road. I think one of the elements that is important, money is important. We know it drives everything. And the Rockies did not have to pay any of his contract going to New York, the remainder of what he was making this year. And then Ryan had a contract that had 2 more years on it for $32 million, $16 million each of the next 2 years, 26 and 27. So that potentially helps out the Rockies with future moves. If they dabble in free agency, in the next year or two, there's a little bit more money to spend. We know the Chris Bryant thing, unfortunately has not worked out. Chris is hurt and has been, hurt for a while, and we understand that. But this also helps from a financial standpoint, in addition to bringing back some young pitching talent. And again, with pitching, the essence of this game, it is the area that is most difficult for the Rockies to acquire, unless it is through the draft, through Latin America, or through trades. And so through trades, this first deal that the Rockies have made leading up to the 2025 trade deadline brings back a couple of young arms, and we'll see, again, eventually how that pans out. But it was an emotional day, as I said, inside that Rockies clubhouse. You always wonder how the Rockies, how young players would respond. And they're off to a nice start in the second half. They won, 4 out of 6. They took 2 of 3 from Minnesota, 2 of 3 from St. Louis, 2 teams that, still have desires and hopes of being part of the postseason if they can make a second half run. So it was a great start from that standpoint. And then last night they go out after the trade and they fall behind 4-0. Kyle Freeland, he may have been tipping pitches. First 2 innings, he gives up 4 solo home runs. And you're thinking, oh man, this is going to be a tough one. It's going to be a bloodbath. Well, he works out of the stretch from that point on. He was dominant in the next 4 innings. And the Rockies started hitting the ball out of the ballpark, beginning with Mickey Moniak again, who's having an extraordinary season. Speaking of a really subtle, good pickup on the final day of spring training by the Rockies. And they get a 2-run home run from Thairo Estrada, who comes off the injured list for the second time. And all of a sudden, they take a 5-4 lead. Jordan Beck was involved. Hunter Goodman was involved. And it ends up being 5-5 late. And Ezekiel Tovar, once again, hits a home run to left field. And the Rockies hold on 6-5. Seth Halverson gets the victory. And the Rockies, again, as we tape now, 5-2 in the second half. Really impressive. And a most impressive win given the circumstances of the McMahon trade earlier in the day. So those were all wonderful things. Wonderful things. We'll see how it continues. 2 more here in Baltimore again as we tape, and then it's on to Cleveland. I said this, I believe last week. I'm going to reiterate it. What will constitute good production, a positive final couple of months for the Rockies? Certainly winning more regularly than in the first half. That's a given. But it's cleaning things up defensively. It's playing with the continued energy we've seen really the last 6-8 weeks. And again, ultimately defending the home court, which is Coors Field. And they did on the first homestand after the break, 4-2. And they've made only 1 error, by the way, first 7 ball games in the second half. So all those are positives, and hopefully they can continue that through over the next couple of months. It's going to be fascinating these next several days leading up to the 31st and the trade deadline. Does Jake Bird get moved? Does anybody else potentially in the bullpen get moved? We shall see. But when you are struggling, when your record is as poor as the Rockies, and the Rockies have struggled the last several years, you have to make some changes. You have to continue to make changes to build a better roster currently and a better future roster. All right, Hall of Fame class. It's Hall of Fame weekend. And this involved the Rockies a couple of times recently with Todd Helton, obviously, and Larry Walker. Just a couple of quick notes. Ichiro goes in. Billy Wagner goes in his final year of eligibility, 422 saves. CC Sabathia, a great left-handed starter, he goes in, and posthumously Dick Allen and Dave Parker go in. And this is I think it's a fabulous class. A couple of notes. First of all, first time I saw Ichiro, the Rockies were playing in Seattle, and I got out there early. I wanted to see him take batting practice, and it was the damnedest thing I'd ever seen because, he's this wiry, lean guy, not a big guy. He can run, he can throw, and great hit ability. And in batting practice, man, he was hitting moonshots into the stands like he was a left-handed, like a Dave Parker, like a Willie Stargell, like a Bryce Harper. I mean, he's hitting the ball in the second deck in Seattle. And I went inside. Clint Hurdle was managing the Rockies then, and I said, Clint, you got to see Ichiro take batting practice. So the next day, Clint comes out early and watched him take batting practice, and he was like shaking his head because you think, he's just going to spray line drives around the ballpark because, that's what he typically does in the game. This guy had big-time pop. And think about it. He arrived at 27 in the big leagues and still got 3,000 hits, well over 4,000 hits because he had 1,200 plus playing in Japan. Phenomenal talent, great speed, great arm, great defender, and I'm looking forward to his speech this weekend. Same thing with CC Sabathia, who's a guy that I think a lot of people can relate to. He's this big, affable guy who had one heck of a career, and he's always been involved in the community. He continues to be involved with Major League Baseball, so I'm looking forward to hearing him. One quick story on Billy Wagner. Billy Wagner had this dominant fastball. He wasn't a big guy. He was a D3 guy. I love D3 guys. My two of my boys played D3 baseball. I had played some D3 baseball, and there's talent everywhere in baseball, and he becomes the first former D3 collegiate baseball player to make the Hall of Fame. But the story I want to tell you is one of my partners, Ryan Spilborghs, has always said the best fastball he ever saw was from Billy Wagner, from that, arm slide. He wasn't a big guy on the left side. He just had, he said, an exploding, disappearing fastball. It's like you could hear it go by. So a couple of notes on this Hall of Fame class, and it's a great one going in. One personal note for me, I'm going to flex my dad pride here, is last week on KOA Radio, my middle son, Zach, whose college career playing is done, and the last 2 years he's been a broadcaster in the Diamondbacks organization in the Texas League, AA baseball, with the Amarillo Sod Poodles. And he's doing exceptionally well, and he was asked by KOA to fill in for Jack Corrigan for one of the ball games that Jack was missing last weekend. So he made his major league debut last Sunday against the Minnesota Twins. And, I was beaming with pride, naturally, and I thought he did great. I'm biased, but, I can also put my broadcasting hat on. I was really, really proud of Zach. So I wanted to make mention of that. And you've heard Zach on the podcast periodically as well. But that was a great day for our family. And I look forward to one day, looking across in a booth, whether it's with the Rockies or another team, and seeing my kid in there as a big league announcer. But I wanted to make mention of that. All right. This week, our guest is a guy I got to know when he was with the Rockies. in the early part of the 2000s. He had a really good long career. Mark Sweeney, known as one of the greatest pinch hitters of all time, kind of a lost art, and we're going to talk about that. But Sweeney was always a sharp guy, was always a guy that was fun to not only visit with, but could articulate himself exceptionally well on a lot of topics. And we developed a relationship and a friendship back in the day when he was playing, and now it continues as Mark is a broadcaster, first with the Padres and now with the St. Louis Cardinals. Just saw him in town with Chip Carey, and I said, you know what, I got to get him on because he's got a lot to say on a lot of different topics. I think he's a fascinating guy, and he's one of the all-time good guys. So I think you'll enjoy our little chat. Mark Sweeney, who played 14 years in the big leagues out of the University of Maine. And for those that don't know this, Maine historically, especially back in the day, had quite a baseball program. College World Series. Billy Swift, who pitched briefly for the Rockies, had a great big league career, product of the University of Maine, as is Mark Sweeney. Enjoy. Dude, first of all, it was good to see you last week when you were in town with the Cardinals. I don't know what you got going on over your head there. It looks like you're getting ready for a lobotomy or something. That thing's going to descend on your head.
Well, anything to cover up this, Drew, I'm actually fine with. But yeah, this is actually in my hotel room, so it looks fancy. So we'll keep it, I guess.
Listen, I met your wife. You did just fine, man. You're way over your skis. So
I am. I
the
am.
self-deprecating humor is appropriate. And look, I'm getting closer to going clean like you.
I know. We talked about that the other day, man. The stubble. I mean, it probably looks good, and you make a lot of stuff look good. But I tell you what, I mean, just it's easy. I use a woman's razor, believe it or not, on my dome, and it's the quickest thing. I you got to do it, Drew. You got to
I
do it.
know I may have to fall down. I may have to fall down that crack. Great Clips will be really pissed at me though if they don't see me every
Right.
few weeks. We'll
Exactly.
go
That's
from
so
there.
true. So
Yeah.
true.
Hey, I want to go back because I was calling the games when you were with the Rockies and you had a great
Yeah.
journey in your big league career. At some point in time, did you think, all right, afterward, I'm going to get into broadcasting? I mean, there's certain guys, I've said this before, that are naturals that I know if that's what they want to do, they're going to be a star.
Yeah.
Our good friend Ryan Spilborg's one of my partners. You knew when he played,
Outstanding. Yeah.
right, he was going to get into it. I felt the same way about you. Were you thinking along those lines?
I thought about a lot of different stuff, and I say that because at the end of your career, you start realizing this could happen anytime. I was that type of player, and I mean it sincerely. You never knew when the last year was going to be, and that was your mentality. But I was searching for what I could do in the game, and I wanted to stay in. That was the most important. That was the priority for me because this game's been beautiful to me. And you've heard me say it to you in conversations like I'm not the guy that got hurt and had injuries and I got screwed. I was the guy that the game was great to me. It was imperative for me to stay in it somehow. I didn't know if it was going to be front office. I didn't know if I was going to go into and want to go into coaching. And I say this, I was single my whole career. So I had the ability to say, okay, selfishly, am I going to stay in the game? Am I going to do something else? And what is that going to entail? Broadcasting was a part of it at the end because I thought, man, I've had so much advice given to me from my former teammates that I'd like to express that. And that's what it's become. So it's been great, a nice transition, I would say.
Yeah, and you take me to a thought that there are very few players. The CBA's up in a year and a half, and I think sometimes the focus is always on the Juan Soto's, that ilk
Yeah.
of player. That's a
Yeah.
very small percentage. The rank and file or the Mark Sweeneys of the world.
Right.
I'm not going down that avenue right now of the what happens with the CBA. But you guys truly are more day to day, month
Yeah.
to month, maybe perhaps year to year. And I think a lot of fans don't realize that because there's enough pressure in the game, But if
Yeah.
you're not on a 6 year, $220 million deal, it's a whole different level of pressure.
Yeah, and I actually and I've reflecting on our careers, and I say that because it's the majority of people that have a window of opportunity, and that was me. I had to struggle. I had to stare at ceilings in hotels. I had to worry about that stuff, but it's a normal life. It's the normal life in the game that's really not normal. And I say that because I had to think that way. It was motivation. It was the ability to think like, hey man, this could end at any time, but also you could make this into a really cool career. And that's what it became. It kept on snowballing because I was in great situations. I played in the game when pinch hitting was okay and it was in vogue. And thank God I did that. But I think there was a lot of times that I kind of questioned myself because at the beginning of your career, you want to be an everyday guy. No one wants to be a pinch hitter and a guy that's coming off the bench and a utility guy. But that was the reasoning why I could stay in the game for so long. And I benefited from staying in this game for a long time because of how many people I got to meet, I got to be around. You don't understand that until later in your career, but that was the greatest gift that I had, playing in 7 different cities and being able to have great teammates and people that were coaching me and really it was a magic carpet ride for what I got to do with the skills that I had.
Do you know what? One of the cool things, and I'm sure you've thought about this time and again, is you have some records. I mean, I believe you have more RBIs than any pinch hitter in the history of the game. If correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's
That's
102, something like that.
that's what
I
my
think you're
mom told me.
that's right. And second all time in pinch hits, right?
Yes, and Lenny
Well, guess
Harris.
what? Because the game has changed so dramatically,
Yeah.
you could walk with a strut going, ain't nobody getting to my records, right?
The greatest thing, Drew, is that I have two stepdaughters that don't know anything of me as a baseball player, but I have a 13-year-old son, and he's asking me questions, and that's what happens. You know that. You've been around your boys. I mean, they ask questions about what you really did, and it takes time. It's not just full tilt. I think that is something that I feel prideful of because it's the body of work that I had. But the nice thing is that was the time frame of what I thought baseball was the best version of itself. Probably a little bit before mine, but I love the version of baseball when there was pinch hitting. The pitchers were hitting in the National League. I love that aspect because there was a lot of stuff in the game that was strategic, more strategic. Um, I feel prideful of that because it was thrown on me as a guy that had to come off and hit against Trevor Hoffman and Rob Nen and Mark Wohlers and obviously the greatest is Mariano Rivera. Um, that was the staple of what I had to try to figure out. I'm prideful of that because it was the longevity in that position, which didn't have a lot of longevity.
Yeah, and I want to point out, I want to kind of embellish what you said for those that are, ingrained in the quote unquote modern game, not that you played
Right,
400 years ago, but what you were asked to do wasn't go, hey, go grab a bat and hit off this middle reliever. It was
right.
game on the line. It was even, +1, -1, whatever it was, and you were facing the nastiest guy in that bullpen. It was the
Yeah,
ninth inning. And so there was pressure with that. And oh, by the way, the guy's blowing 98, or he's got, the greatest cutter anybody's ever
right.
seen in the case of Rivera. So not easy. And you had so much success doing that. And you should have a lot of pride in that, man.
I do. I mean, listen, sitting in the on deck circle, and I'll put it in perspective for the for all the fans. You're hearing these walk-up songs that was really prevalent coming into the game then, and it started with closers, not necessarily people coming up to the plate all the time. But Hell's Bells, and he was a teammate of mine, was Trevor Hoffman. And talking about intimidating when you're sitting in the on deck circle and you're trying to get loose, and all the fans are like, whoever's next is going to get embarrassed. They're going to get embarrassed by the changeup of Trevor Hoffman. The World Series in 1998 was against the Yankees. I finished the World Series against Mariano Rivera. The night before, I had a pinch hit off him. So I felt really comfortable about that. But these guys walking in with those songs and the intimidation factor was another element of just what I had to worry about. But I am, Drew. I look back now and I don't sit there and pat myself on the back. I'm thrilled that I lasted as long as I did in the game. I'm thrilled of all the teammates that I had. But what was asked of me was something that I felt and got comfortable with. And I did, coming off the bench and figuring out how to handle velocity, how to handle the moment, but also when you didn't handle it, how did you adjust for the next day? Because it can snowball in the wrong direction. And I felt like I conquered that aspect of it, and I'm prideful of that.
Two-part question. How much did your football background, when you went to University of Maine, I think you initially went as a quarterback and
I did.
probably a football scholarship and quote unquote, even though they wanted you to play baseball, you have to, you're a walk-on in baseball, but
Right.
you're playing football. I know the importance, I'll let you speak to this, of being a multi-sport guy for, you
Yeah.
have a 13-year-old son now. And the other aspect is, we all want to be a star. And
Right.
at what point in time do you go, okay, my role is probably not going to be hitting 3-hole and getting 600 ABs a year, and how you
Yep.
came to grips with that?
Yeah, I first and foremost, two-sport athletes, I think, are gonna start turning around and coming in more. I know we have a lot of it. We have two-way players and Shohei, and a lot of things change that way. I was benefited from having that football background. And I'll say this, as a quarterback, you're the guy. And I think that has a lot to do with how I felt in high school, getting into college. Never started in college as a quarterback, but that was my first love. Um, and I think I loved baseball more because of that. And I'll say that because football is my first love, but baseball's always the challenging sport because hitting a round ball with a round bat is true. It's the hardest thing in sports. But I love the fact that I had separation of the sports. Mentally, I was more motivated to be a better baseball player because I was playing football and I felt like I was behind. I wanted to go and attack that. Um, I think that helped me along the way. Plus, the leadership aspect of what a quarterback brought um, gave me the opportunity to be mentally tough enough to handle being a pinch hitter in the major leagues. I never thought it would be that way. It's reflecting back, but I know that helped me along the way. So I think that separation of sports is really good. But I also think when you're playing another sport and you feel like you're at the top of it, um, where you feel like you can go to the next level, you've conquered that aspect, and I think it's really good. It helped me along the way, and I hope that there's more kids out there that are thinking that way rather than overplaying one sport and committing to it at an early age. I don't really think that's a great idea. I know I'm going in two different tangents, but I hope parents understand there's ways to go about your son or daughter being an athlete. And I think being an athlete, you can adjust a lot more, especially in the game of baseball.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, even the practical experience, the footwork, whether it's basketball, guarding someone, there's
Yep.
crossover. It's going to help you as an infielder, hand-eye coordination, all those things. Plus, you know what? Are you really truly getting better just because you're taking swings on December 14th and November
Right.
18th in the cage, as opposed to, shooting jumpers or whatever the sport, additional sport may be? I want to
Right.
throw something else at you. And this is where a bias that I think we both share comes into play. One of the other reasons I believe you probably made it, and I don't know if you go here much, is there's a Northeast toughness component. You and I are
Yeah.
both in the Northeast,
Yep.
and it's not Southern California. You can't roll out on November, December and go field ground balls. Hey, Dad, let's go hit outside.
Right.
The weather sucks. You grew up in Massachusetts, and then you went further north. You go up to Maine, to Orono. right? And
Yeah.
guess what, man? All those pretty guys in Florida and Southern California and Texas, not as easy.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I'll say this too. I the talent in Texas and Florida and California, Southern California especially, I'm right in the middle of it. I had to shovel my car out to go work out. And that's the reason why I live in San Diego now, because it was
Yeah, because
frustrating.
you
But
got you got soft, by the way. But
yes,
yeah, go
I
ahead.
got soft, and I am. I'm so soft now. It's unbelievable. But back then, I didn't know any better. I was shoveling my car out to go work out because it had to be done, and I was obsessed with it. I wanted to do it. The one thing it does in the Northeast that I think is even put me in this spot now is that I did things on my own. I didn't do it in groups. Um, when I had to work, it was going downstairs and hitting off a tee and hitting into a net. But I spent a lot of time with myself of just trying to feel what was going on with my swing, for example. That's the Northeast because when I went to go work out, I went to the indoor batting cages, which were just coming in at that time. There weren't a lot of indoor batting cages. I was fortunate that I had one because we didn't have a yard that I could put up a hitting cage or a tunnel. Didn't have that, so I'd go there and I would do it on my own. Hit off the tee, hit off the machine, really internalize what I was trying to do and honing in my craft. I think that's what is really different. Now there's a lot of people that work in groups. There's specialty hitting coaches, all that stuff. It's magnified, and you can benefit from that. But I wouldn't have. I wouldn't have benefited from an individual batting coach or whatever. I wanted to understand how to make adjustments myself and not rely on coaches, even though when you have good coaching, they can get you out of it faster. But I had that element that I felt comfortable enough to say, I'm going to make a tweak here and there. This isn't a good feel. And I really honed in what my swing really was off a batting tee, which is crazy for people because there's so many pitching machines and we can simulate certain things now where it's extravagant. Minimizing it and keeping it simple was very important for me and moving forward, and I benefited from it.
Yeah, and a lot of the greatest hitters of all time, talk about tee work. Albert
Yeah.
Pujols had an elaborate tee work. Guy you play with, Barry Bonds, had an elaborate, correct
Yep.
tee work
Yes.
prep before
Tony
every game.
Gwynn. Tony Gwynn did it the most I've ever seen, and it was so meticulous of how those guys hit off the tee. Now, if you're asking a young kid to hit off a tee, it's boring. It's not nothing's coming at you. They're obsessed with velocity and how hard you can hit it and how fast the ball can come at you. I learned from all of those guys that you just mentioned that they're elite players and they knew how important it was. So me as a pinch hitter or utility guy, it rubber stamped everything that a batting tee meant. So I utilized that within even my games. So if I was not getting a start, Drew, I wasn't, I already took batting practice. I already did my routine. I did soft toss, maybe some tee. But when the game started and I was about to get loose for a guy throwing 95 miles an hour at me, it was a batting tee. It wasn't a pitching machine. I didn't need to see velocity. I needed to know my swing was short enough to handle a 95 mile an hour fastball.
Yeah. You got to play with some all-time greats. You got to face some all-time greats and some all-time great characters. So I want to throw out some names and give me your initial thoughts. This guy is just and you just referenced him, and I'm going to start with Tony Gwynn. And I had the honor and pleasure of getting to know him. And if you were going to talk baseball, Tony would be like, pull up a chair, right? And you're going
Right.
to talk baseball for a while. When
Yep.
someone like myself mentions, the late great Tony Gwynn, what's the first thing you think about?
He's the greatest hitter I've ever seen. And that's saying a lot because you mentioned Barry Bonds, Larry Walker comes to mind for me. Um, He was the best hitter. And back then, when they had the specialty lefties and they'd bring in the Dennis Cooks and the police acts, like all the guys, they would come in that had to get lefties out at a very good rate. It was a double in the gap. And it was really spectacular to watch him at his craft and talk about it. Anytime he mentioned something about hitting, I was listening.
Absolutely. Let's go Rockies for a while. And you had some great moments in a Rockies uniform, and that's where obviously we got to know each other. Uh,
Yep.
when somebody says Helton, it's easy to talk about how great a player he is, but truly one of the great characters of
Yeah.
the game, though it wasn't intentional, was it?
No, and he was obsessed at his craft. I'll say that. Hitting was amazing. I was with Chip Carey the other day when we were doing the Rocky series, and we walked by, the cabinets of all the memorabilia and him being a Hall of Famer. It's very prideful to know because what he did and how much time he put into his craft. And I said to Chip, I said, Chip, this is the guy that would turn on a fastball and it would just be foul down the line. And the next pitch, he's hitting a changeup for a double down the line. And there's not many people that can do that. Obviously, Tony Gwynn could do it, but Todd did that a lot. And it wasn't just once in a while. He adjusted on the fly, but he had an aggression about him that I absolutely loved. So, and he was obsessed at being good at everything. And I think that's what drove him to the point where obviously he's in the Hall of Fame and very prideful to know I was around a hitter like that.
Yeah, and a former quarterback also to boot.
Yeah,
Did
right.
he ever in the clubhouse like, oh, Sweeney homered last night in the ninth inning. I was 0 for 4 and steal your pants? Because I mean, he was notorious for
Yeah.
doing stuff like that.
I'll tell you this though, he was obsessed with getting hits, right? And he had the bats, gosh, I'm trying to think of what the bats is. It's he had different bats for everything, and if he didn't get a hit, he put it to the side. Well, those were aluminum bats for me, and I was like, "Hey, Todd, can I try one of those?" And I would hit a ball, and I'm like, "I don't feel these off my bat that says Mark Sweeney on the end." But when it said Todd Helton, um, that was it was um, it was spectacular. The bats that he had, and I know he and Larry Walker had their bats in certain spots. Our bats weren't even close to them, but he
Right.
deserved that. I used his bat a lot, and so I can understand. But he's obsessive. I was too fat. He didn't need to use my pants at all to get hits.
One of my favorite stories is Preston Wilson one day comes in and he's looking. He couldn't find his game. Whatever their uniform was put in the locker room that day, or
Right.
his locker that day, couldn't find it. Well, the day before, like he had, with 3 for 4 with a couple of bombs, Helton took his pants and put them on. So he was too bad, man. I'm wearing
It
them.
doesn't surprise me because like honestly it was hits. He knew that when he had doubles and home runs, we're winning. That's why he was so obsessed with it. It wasn't necessarily the selfish aspect of it. This guy was on at all times. He never took a break. So yes, I mean Preston Wilson was probably talking a lot of crap too about where his pants were.
Exactly. So Walker, what Walker, different cat too. I mean, phenomenally gifted.
Yeah,
Um, you know, would go through life, still does. Is kind of happy go lucky. What do
yeah.
you got on Walk?
I'll say this, Drew, and I think I've said this to you before. Um, Larry Walker's the best player I've ever played with. And I say that because I was seven different teams. And listen, we're talking about Barry Larkin and Ozzie Smith and obviously Tony Gwynn. Larry Walker's the best player that could do everything on a baseball field. And he did it with ease. The only thing I could say against Larry Walker is he didn't play every day because he was hurt a lot. That's the only bad thing you can say about Larry Walker. But when he's on the field, he's the best player on the field. Um, he did little things that I was amazed at, and base running and his defensive play and his accuracy of throwing was stuff that I don't think a lot of people talk about because the home runs and the MVP and what he's done He's a spectacular player, and him getting into the Hall of Fame was amazing for us because I think it opened the door for Todd Helton. I think it opened the door for a lot because there's a perception of, man, they did it in thin air. Listen, I don't care what uniform Larry Walker had. He was a Hall of Famer no matter what because he could do it all. He could do everything.
Do you find yourself, by the way, you broadcast with the Padres, now you're with the Cardinals. Do you find yourself, because you have intimate knowledge of trying to kind of disparage the thought, if you will, that some nationally have that, oh, you hit in Colorado, big deal.
Yeah.
Because you know how difficult it is then to go on the road, what it does to the body. All of a sudden, the ball movement's different.
Right.
And you can speak to that firsthand.
Yeah, I definitely I had a conversation with Eric Karros, for example. And Eric Karros is a brilliant broadcaster, a really good player. He just looks at Colorado as being like it's a joke. And it's funny, his son is actually in the organization, right?
And
But
one of the better prospects in the organization.
right. But he disparaged the Rocky situation because he played in the NL West, and he had reason to say that. I would fight him on that in a sense because I do believe that when you left Colorado, those breaking balls were different. They were very different, but it doesn't make it easier for you to hit it in Colorado because you have an expectation of what a breaking ball is supposed to be. If it was Derek Kyle's breaking ball, if it was Todd Stottlemyre's slider coming in, you had expectations. You faced that before. You knew what that ball did, and it usually ended up near your ankles. Um, when it doesn't in Colorado, it's not always constant that it doesn't break. It doesn't just stay in a zone where it says hit me. It's adjustment both ways, whether you're in Colorado or whether you're on the road. Obviously, they break more consistently when you're on the road, but that means it's tougher to hit. I always thought that way. I always looked at guys' numbers and said if they were consistent when they were on the road, man, that's spectacular. Because it was hard for me to do it. My numbers were better in Colorado because it's a confidence factor when you're at Coors Field. You see the ball better. There's elements of the batter's eye comparable to everyone else. There's a lot of that stuff, but I do believe you have to deal with the nature of how your body feels in the light air as well. And I think that is a factor that if you never play in a Rockies uniform, you're not playing consistent games, the 10-game homestand, you don't understand that. And that is a factor.
Yeah. I'm bouncing again on you. One of my favorite stories that you and your old buddy Todd Green, another former Rocky, had a really nice
Yeah.
big league career as well. I remember you telling me before it happened, and you guys pulled it off. You were with the Giants when Barry broke Hank Aaron's record.
Right.
And you were both prepared. You guys are KG veterans,
Yeah.
both prepared what you were going to do when Barry broke the record. So take us through that.
Well, when he was doing it, it took a while for him to break the record. I mean, there was a lot of distance between his home runs, and he wasn't hitting at an alarming rate. But we all knew it was coming. I was in the dugout right next to his son. Todd and I were talking about, we did things that I'll get to after he broke the record, but I'm in the dugout right next to his son. And we're not talking, and obviously he walks up. They changed the baseballs with the umpire. It was a very elaborate situation every time he came to the plate. And at times it's like, come on, dude, let's get on with this. Mike Bassick's on the mound. He's pitching. And Barry, as I mentioned, didn't hit a lot of home runs at that time. And all of a sudden, crack of the bat, and it's going to right center. Well, we know what right center is up in San Francisco. I mean, it's
Four,
it's
four
a
miles.
graveyard. It's a
Yeah.
graveyard. I had to hit it twice. So he hits it. His son is on the railing, jumps over the railing when the ball's hit, and he's out going on the field. And I'm looking at him like, dude, that better get out because I mean, you're the 10th man, like on the field. And that's what it looked like. So I'm like, hey man, and it goes out. And it was almost like there it is. Like it's crazy the moment and the magnitude and the history of what goes on. Because you think of Hank Aaron, you think of all the people that are waiting for the situation. You also understood the narrative of all of it, where people didn't want Barry to break the record and they didn't want to do that. So we're involved with all of that. And then it happened. So we jump out. I go around. I didn't do what his son did because I couldn't jump over the rail. So we get out there and we're celebrating. He's hugging his son. And then all of a sudden we're out there. And here's Todd. Todd looked like the bat boy. He wanted to grab his bat. Todd was all excited. He was all giddy. But Drew, I'll tell you this, all the enormity of the moment and the fans of San Francisco and everybody that wanted it to happen, we felt because we were the home team. Um, in the and we thought about this too. We got champagne flutes, and obviously we toasted him in the locker room. I think he was shocked because I thought there was a lot of teammates that didn't want to do that. There were people that didn't care for him that much because of his personality and what he had to do and how he had to be as a person to go through that moment. But we celebrated it collectively and we toasted him because it's a remarkable feat. No matter how you fall on that, um, the amount of home runs that you have to hit, and also it gave us a breather of thinking about the history of the game and what Hank Aaron went through and all that stuff. It's everything, and if you didn't think that way, it's ridiculous. Fans will get mad at you or happy. The San Francisco fans embraced Barry at all times. They did. So doing it at home was very important. Doing it with his son hugging him when he got to home plate. There was a lot of cool aspects to it. I'm just glad that I was part of it and got to watch something that was spectacular. And he's probably the greatest home run hitter ever. He's right there with all the great hitters in the game. But man, that moment was pretty special for him. And we understood what it was, and it was nice to be a part of it.
Yeah, Swing Dog, I've been asked in many times because as a broadcaster, and you obviously played for a long, long time, who's the greatest hitter you ever seen? And I don't equivocate. I understand, the other story, if you will, the
Right.
steroid issue
Yep.
with a lot of fans that, the guys that were allegedly involved.
Right.
However, he's the greatest friggin' hitter. I always say that. Who's the greatest hitter? I said Barry Bonds. I said I've never
Yep.
seen anything like it. He would get one pitch a night. He wouldn't line a
Right.
single, over the second baseman's head. He hit it 4 miles, and he spit on everything else. For those who say he was selfish, he would take his walks 200
Right.
plus. I mean, it was
Right.
crazy. He'd get one pitch a night. He'd destroy it. I mean,
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like it.
And Drew, how many people, you don't see it now with Aaron Judge and Otani. You don't see this because
Right.
people don't believe in walking people. I mean, you can obviously you're throwing non-competitive pitches. That was an instant situation with Barry, and you'd look over as us as teammates. You'd look over at the visiting manager, Clint Hurdle, four immediately. Like they
Yeah.
go down the. It was immediate because that was how impactful he was as a hitter. I say Tony Gwynn's the best hitter because it was just the purity of it. You are exactly right. They didn't throw strikes like they threw strikes to Tony Gwynn, to Barry Bonds. They didn't do it. They easily threw non-competitive pitches, and you saw it, and you would see it on Barry. But you're right. He'd get one pitch a series, maybe one pitch every other series, and the ball would be hit out of the ballpark.
Yeah.
Um, I heard this about Barry Bonds when I first got to San Francisco, and I said this to Chip the other day, Chip Carey. I got there, and their hitting coach at the time told me he went over a year and a half without pulling a ball foul, and they tracked it a year and a half without pulling a ball foul, not getting in front of a changeup, not turning on a fastball. He did not pull it, hook it foul, which we did a lot. We got fooled a lot. And then you would do that. And I'm not talking about the fastballs and he'd hit foul balls, but he never got in front and hooked it for a year and a half. And that's really difficult to do. But it goes into what his philosophy is. He talks about catching a ball on the barrel of the bat, and everything was within his body. It wasn't out front, which we hear it all the time. A lot of these guys are like, hey, I got to get out front and get on the pull side. He didn't think about getting on the pull side. He thought about hitting the ball within the parameters and catching it and driving it to the center of the field.
Yeah, remarkable. It truly was remarkable to watch. And for those that, if you get a couple minutes, go look up on Baseball Reference's 04 season. It looks like the best kid in the in your little league of all time.
Right.
Like little league numbers. Like, boy, Johnny was really, really good.
Playing with fences that were that short, like Williamsport.
Yeah,
for sure.
Exactly. I would be remiss if I let you get on out of here without asking one of the things you're proud of your career, not only your pinch hitting acumen and all the things you accomplished, staying in the game for 14 years, but I thought it culminated. This gives an idea of how smart Mark Sweeney was. You're in Los Angeles, you're in Tinseltown. And every night, folks, you know where I'm going with this now. Every night in LA, folks, there's some famous person, singer, goddess, you put it, actor. There's somebody that's throwing out the first pitch. I mean, this isn't Cleveland. God bless Cleveland. This isn't anywhere else. This is LA. And they're always going to put on a show. Well, there were often times you weren't starting. And you were a veteran, you were in your late 30s, and your hand would go up to be the guy that caught the first pitch. You were doing it on a regular basis. You're a sharp dude.
Yeah, I'll do
your
it.
Your favorite one. Come on. What's your favorite all-time first pitch? Give me your top three.
I don't remember her name, but she was very famous at the time. And I remember walking out the dugout, and I should know her name, and I'm sorry I don't. But we come in and she's outside the dugout, and it says in a white tank top, and she looked very good. It said, I love Joe Torre. And Joe Torre's our manager. And all of a sudden I come out and Joe goes, hey, can you catch the first pitch tonight? And I looked up and I saw the t-shirt and I said, sure can. I sure can. So I go out there. Listen, I did this all the time because I was single and I had the ability to do this. Every time I caught the pitch, you see the handshake and then you're going to take a picture. I went in for the hug, Drew. I went in for the hug. I mean, that's what you do. You have to go in because I'm a hugger.
You're a warm guy.
That's exactly right. I can't give you a top three, but I'll tell you this: like there was so many dynamic people that were there. Penny Marshall was always there, right next to the dugout. There were so many people that would do that. The first pitch in the Los Angeles Dodgers, and I'm sure it's better now because of all their success. That's the recent success and Shohei and all the star players they have. I did it when the Dodgers weren't playing that well and we weren't winning consistently. So I'm sure the first pitches are a lot better now with all the star-studded people. But man, it puts a smile on my face because you're right. Mid-30s, you're not getting a lot of starts. You're available for the first pitch, so you might as well do it.
Absolutely. That's very shrewd. It's like, what was the movie where, you get you write the phone number on the baseball and throw it to the pretty girl in the stands. Well,
exactly.
You have to take it one step further, man.
I wasn't successful at that. I wish I was better at that. I didn't have any game when it came to that stuff, but man, that was fun times for sure.
All right. Last one. Who's the best team you've seen, man? Who's I don't want to say who's the last one standing because it's an element of getting hot at the right time in October. But the composition 1 through 26 of the, on a roster of the teams you've seen, who do you like, or what couple of teams do you think are going to be tough outs?
In the National League, I think the National League's stronger than the American League. Not that that's going to be the determining factor, because in 7 games you never know what's going to happen. I like the Philadelphia Phillies, and I'll tell you why. Zach Wheeler obviously leads that staff. Christopher Sanchez is one of the best pitchers in the game of baseball. A lot of people don't talk about. His stuff is electric. Luzardo is going to be able to give you really important innings. Ranger Suarez. So that's the reason why. And obviously, they have star power. The one thing that scares me about it is the Jose Alvarado situation. Him getting popped for whatever it was that he got suspended for. He's not eligible. So at this trade deadline, I think the Phillies are going to have to go out and get Emmanuel Clase, maybe a Ryan Helsley here from St. Louis. They're going to have to get somebody that's impactful, maybe even 2 guys. If they do that, then Kyle Schwarber, Bryce Harper, Trey Turner, those guys feel really comfortable and they get
Yeah.
dangerous. It's timing aspect of it. I think the Phillies are probably the worry that we all talk about the Dodgers. If they get healthy, they get scary very quickly. They haven't been the best version of themselves, but they've had a lot of injuries. So I would say that's going to be the case, because Shohei Ohtani has already stepped up in the big moments. Freddie Freeman, uh, and Mookie Betts. That's the roster that I think everyone scares out. But I would say the Philadelphia Phillies would be the one going after it. In American League, I think it's the Detroit Tigers, even with the struggles that they've gone through. I think AJ Hinch does a great job of that. I think they have a couple moves to make at the trade deadline, but I like the Detroit Tigers.
Yeah. I love your take on Philadelphia because, and there's a veteran component, which no one would know better than you, that
Yeah.
plays in October also. But, you know, it's always going to be about pitching. And I think a lot of people don't realize how gifted Suarez and Sanchez. I mean,
Wow.
Sanchez's changeup's stupid. I
It
mean,
is. And he's the most
it's
athletic
ridiculous.
guy out there too. He's athletic. He figures it out. And honestly, they could put Suarez in the bullpen to be a weapon as well if they have everybody lined up. And Suarez is one of the best starting pitchers on any other team.
Yeah. Hey, Swings, I can't thank you enough taking time out in the middle of the day. As you're getting ready for the Padres. I'm getting ready for the Orioles here in a little bit. By the way,
Yep.
thanks to your Cardinals, you got the Rock Show rolling.
I know we
Um,
did. We did.
yeah.
Well, it's good. They deserve some wins, and so do you, for sure.
Well, they're playing a lot better. Listen, I'm happy for you. I'm proud of you. I know that sounds silly. We're contemporaries, but
Yeah.
everything you've accomplished, and the Cardinals are lucky to have you. And continued success. And I'll see you in a few weeks in St. Louis.
Drew, I appreciate everything, buddy. You know I'd do it this at any time. It's fun talking baseball, but also sending some memories out there as well. And I love it. Every time we get to see each other, it's like we never left. So I don't want to get sappy, but it's really cool to have friendships within this game, because that's what it's built. This game is beautiful because of the relationships that we get to have, and ours is very important to me.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Back at you. Go have fun. Keep Chip Carey in line tonight. Big
You got it.
ogre. Man. I'll
He's
talk
great.
to you soon.
He's great.
See you,
Okay,
Mark.
talk to you soon.
Mark Sweeney brings that same passion that he had for playing and the same work ethic that he had playing to the broadcast booth. And, I have immense respect for Mark. Always enjoy cutting it up with him. And I hope you enjoyed that interview as much as I did bringing it to you. So continued success to Sween Dog, and we'll see the Rockies in St. Louis in a few weeks coming up. All right, that will do it. Broncos camp underway. I'm sure you're aware of that. We'll do it again in 7 days. The trade deadline will have passed. Next time we visit, we'll see if there's some additional moves for the Rockies, and we'll see how the rest of this trip pans out for Colorado, but it's been a good start to the second half. As I said, 5-2 for the Rock Show as they continue in Baltimore. It's time for me to get to the ballpark. We'll talk again in 7 days. Take care. Stay safe, everyone.